Hello, how have you been? How's the family? Good, good. Step into my office. We're going to be discussing an event that, you may or may not care about. Nonetheless, regardless of my opinions or reaction, regardless of your capacity to care about this, there was an objective change in the physics of the universe. I mean, it wasn't a big one. It was nothing like, those scientists that are trying to recreate the Big Bang, right? I hope you're not, in the middle of your brunch next week and suddenly, you get zapped to another dimension. It's nothing like that. It is just what you might call, a shifting in the texture of the fabric that is ever weaving regarding our next president. So we've got one Scott Walker, and he is he's going for it, guys. He's going for it. So I'm gonna be covering his announcement and everything that goes with it. Don't go away. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker would like to be President of the United States of America. Mr. Walker is enjoying a number 2 spot, according to a very recent Fox poll. He's second only to that one sensational controversy. Donald Trump. Right? So he is nipping at the heels of that dude, Mr. Trump. And this is all with a I guess, relatively to the other candidates, late announcement, which is what we are going to cover. So all of my old-time listeners know quite well that I do my research here at Presidential Speculatainment. Guys, I dig in there. I pulled up the YouTube video of Governor Walker announcement speech for president. And I saw that the longest video available was 90-something minutes. So, good Lord, I mean, if I had watched that whole video, who knows what kind of world we would live in. So, I went to the shorter video, but I did happen to catch the very beginning of the, of course, the long version. Extended version starts out. We got a couple of Scott Walker's offspring that are on the job. His 2 sons were the MCs of all of the introductory speakers. These 2 young gentlemen walked out and, stood in front of the podium. One of them, he says, "My name is Matt Walker. That's my brother, Rex. And we would like to thank you for coming to support our dad today." So at that point, that's when I fast forwarded. I mean, do you blame me? So the sun's cleared out. and up comes their mother. She was very sweet, very charming, a good speaker. I would give her like a A+, or maybe just an A, because I like to save the pluses. But her name is Tanette Walker. Job well done. She comes out, talks about Scott, does not touch on any, issues, policy. Again, job well done. Just talks about, how much of a charming guy that Scott Walker is. And I guess was, back in 1993 when they got married. Told a little story about how they first met or didn't meet, according to the point of view of the story, because she says she was at some kind of a karaoke joint, and Walker did not whisper a pickup line in her ear. Instead, as he was exiting the venue, he handed Tanette a napkin with a note on it. Right, because this was before. Okay. And the note said, "Forgive me for being rude, but I have to be up early for work." And then on the same napkin, it had his phone number, and he asked her out to dinner. Very sexy, if you ask me. I'm gonna give Scott a couple kudos here on the sexiness. It worked, apparently. Not only that, but not so many months later, they were out to dinner, and Scott slipped a napkin over, and what did it say? "Forgive me for being rude, but will you marry me?" Oh, that's sweet though, isn't it? I mean, that is heartwarming. I mean, Democrat, Republican, Sharia law supporter, whatever you are, that's awfully sweet, And you guessed it, she said yes. And the rest is history until Scott Walker decided to run for president, which Tanette describes her reaction to that decision as, she said, what the heck? Why not? So, you know what? I think Tanette is really the star of the show, of this event. So Tanette introduces her husband, and he comes out and does the whole entrance thing. And he gives handshakes to people. I noticed that the quality of the handshake, it deteriorated. You might notice my observations on the art of the politician handshake, covering Chris Christie, who he did some handshakes after his speech, but then gypped a couple people with high fives. All right, you guys are going to be happy to know that Mr. Walker didn't do any high fives, but I as I said, his handshakes, the quality, it definitely went down as he went down the line. Started off with the whole firm grip of the whole thing, and then at the end it became kind of a dainty grab only with the fingers. As Scott was walking up to give his speech, there were some hired muscle that got the podium out of the way. So for all of these, people introducing the governor that I did not watch, they all had the podium handicap. It's like a security blanket, which leads me to my next point, that Scott Walker is an excellent public speaker, which I covered on one of the early editions of the podcast. He is quite good as an orator, taking a couple pages out of Obama's book. Like he looks straight at the camera. Obama is a great speaker. Scott Walker was doing the same trick during his speech. He would look at the cameras for a solid several seconds as he was making a point. And, he is overall a very good speech maker. And I'll point out right here that Scott Walker is a good-looking guy. As a matter of fact, I believe, and you guys can put me on record for this, I believe that Scott Walker is, I would say, tied for second place in the best-looking candidates contest for the Republicans. Actually, you know what? Count all of them. All of them. He is in dead heat in second place. I'm going to go with Rubio. I guess he's kind of my man crush as far as the looks department in this contest. And, I think that Scott Walker and Rand Paul, Mr. Curls, would be tied for second place. And I think Scott Walker might be the best speaker out of the whole Republican bunch. As a matter of fact, I even think he might be as good of a speaker as Marco Rubio in 2024 during that presidential run. Because Rubio, he's got all the makings of being that. But is he that now? I mean, just watch that State of the Union speech where he goes for his miniature water bottle because he's sweating. He can't handle the heat. Scott Walker can handle the heat, and he did, and he looked good. He had some kind of a digital watch on. I saw no press about the watch that Walker was wearing, but I'm very curious about it. It was not a traditional analog. It was some kind of a digital thing. And, guys, at some point I have to address the sort of a bald patch. So Scott Walker is a handsome man. He has a bald patch, at the back of his head, at the dome. And I don't know what to make of it at this point. I mean, I'm sure he has his statisticians, at work. But I just thought I would note it because I know it's going to lose him, at least a few to several thousand or more votes on a subliminal level. But that's a level that we're at, guys, on this type of reporting. He got up there and he started speaking. And at this point, is where I will go into the abstract, the ideological realm, where we start to talk about, well, what is this man's ideas and what might he think about when he's in that plush leather chair as the top chief? He was a pretty good communicator of that. He sort of set the stage by giving his accomplishments as Wisconsin's governor, which included he I guess passed. Planned Parenthood defunded them a little bit, at least. Let's see. Oh yeah, he bragged a little bit about the teachers' unions. The reforms that he put through, which I guess eliminated or put severe limits on seniority and tenure as far as who gets the teaching jobs, so that they're, based on merit. So he was able to say, he won an important contest over the unions. He got to, brag about how he lowered property taxes, which according to Scott are lower than 4 years ago in Wisconsin. He instituted lawsuit reform as well as regulatory reform. And recently also approved a bill concerning the concealed carry, which regarding firearms, which already existed in Wisconsin, but this particular bill eliminated the previously in place 48-hour waiting period to get a handgun, and also this new law permits retired and off-duty police officers to have a concealed firearm on like school campuses. The governor, Wisconsin governor, starts off by sort of waving all these various, I guess you could say, feathers in his cap that he did when he was the governor. And this does distinguish Scott Walker from some other candidates. We have revisited on the podcast this question that pundits toss around of, do you want a governor or do you want a senator? A senator is just a guy tossing around ideals, and none of his bills get passed, and therefore he's just some kind of a armchair philosopher. Whereas this governor, in this case, he took a lot of action. And I do think that distinguishes Scott Walker from some of the other cats out there. But he did, he didn't brag for too long, because he went ahead and suggested to everybody what a President Walker might be like. He says that Americans, I think he was talking to the Republican base, saying, people don't want to just be against stuff. They want somebody who's for things. And so he says, tonight, let me tell you what I'm for. Reform, growth, safety. So just 3 words there, just to get you turned on a little bit politically. I mean, are you? I imagine. He talks about transferring power from DC to individuals and states. He talks about, he says a few things that you would expect vague type strokes. We saw a lot of that with Jeb Bush's speech announcement, So, Scott did dip his brush in that paint when he says things like, we need to be for a pro-growth economic plan. So find me a candidate who's a pro-shrinkage economic plan. Find me that, person. And also says, we need to live in a safe and stable world. That's why I'm for true safety. So please find me the candidate who is for false safety or who's for true anarchy. We did get a little bit of that, but we did get some decent policy remarks as far as actually relating to what the president might do regarding President Walker. So Walker addressed the regulatory burden on economic activity, saying that, we need to have less regulations on businesses and people starting businesses. He cited his moratorium that he put in place on new regulations as governor of Wisconsin. And if you don't know what moratorium is, my only advice is to not ask me. Don't ask me what that is. He wants to encourage the family unit when he's hypothetically the president, saying that, we need to get rid of welfare state laws, that discourage marriage and a traditional family unit. He did also cite that when he was putting in place reforms in Wisconsin, one of the things that went through was that if you want to qualify for some kind of welfare benefit, not only is there the usual hoops you got to jump through, for instance, claiming that you're job searching or job training or whatever it may be, but in this case, you got to take a drug test now because Scott Walker wants you to be drug-free. According to him, as long as you're getting some kind of a welfare handout, you can't enjoy any of the illicit substances that are out there. Unlike all of the other Americans who are, in regular jobs, paying taxes and all that. Sure, they got off work and light up a fat doobie. But, for people that are struggling depending on that welfare check, to pay their rent, to pay their affordable housing, to feed their baby mama's kid, whatever it might be. No. You better be sober as a judge. So not cool, Scott, on that one. However, your point that the welfare system discourages a traditional family unit, that could very well still be valid. But why'd you have to go and start drug testing everybody? Walker talks about how he lowered taxes in Wisconsin and how he would like to lower taxes in all of America. And he compared his ideas with that one company that your grandma always buys you sweaters from, Kohl's. Oh yeah. Well, first he prefaces by saying, Tanette and I like to shop at Kohl's, talking about how they, in the past, have collected various incentives such as Sunday newspaper coupons, some flyers received, and even some discounts straight from the rack. So after all that tallies up, Scott says, and then, as the clerk is ringing it up, Toinette scoops into her purse and pulls out some of that Kohl's cash. And next thing you know, they're paying me to buy the shirt, right? We're not really, but it seems like it, right? I apologize for not researching that. So if anybody does know, please let me know. So I don't know what this Kohl's Cash stuff is, but the whole reason why Walker is even talking about his shopping habits and coupon clipping past is because he's talking about the tax base and how he would lower taxes across the board in order to get more revenues. Scott continues. So how does a great company like Kohl's make any money? They make it out of volume, right? And there he makes his point, trying to, bring it down to the lowest common denominator. Because let's admit it, guys, the average American doesn't know much about economics, especially if they paid attention to that one semester long course in high school economics. Scott Walker basically makes the point. I guess Reagan made the same point when he lowered taxes for a lot of people, because Walker did say that he would like to lower taxes for both employers and individuals. The reason that he brought up Kohl's is trying to say that if you broaden the base, it will ultimately bring in more revenues. Because I do think Walker is bringing up a pretty good point here about the tax code, which is a mess. Don't get me wrong. But he's basically saying, okay, Kohl's can sell a shirt at a very low price, but because their number of customers buying that low price shirt is tons, then they'll ultimately make more profits than that company who's selling it, for an arm and a leg. Contrasted with Obama, who just says, raise it on the wealthy, or raise it on him or her, or whoever, the headline is like, oh, well, the rate is raised. We'll get more money coming into the tax coffers. But the sub-headline is like, oh, Johnny or Janie, they've just seen that their tax rate increased to X amount and have decided to, maybe not work this year, take a year off, So it's like there are some things that can't be measured, and this is difficult for the typical voter to comprehend. And Scott Walker is trying to present this idea that lower taxes might not just mean that the rich pay less in taxes, but that it could ultimately mean that the rich pay more in taxes, but they also make more profits. It's a complex idea, and it's a little bigger than the typical box that we are squeezed into during electorate politics. Another quick example would be Rockefeller was a famous oil man from USA, and he refined oil and almost completely monopolized the market. In fact, I believe that he got about a 90% share on the market. In any case, Rockefeller cut the price of kerosene majorly during his time with Standard Oil. And, of course, that resulted in a great benefit of Americans who were able to suddenly afford kerosene, which meant, guess what? That they could stay up after the sun went down and do stuff. Because prior to kerosene, do you guys know what the method of lighting your dark space was? It was the fat of a whale. I'm not kidding. Again, we're getting back to the incentive of the individual, which is not to, in the vast majority of all cases, be some kind of a Gandhi good Samaritan, but to, make him or herself rich. But in that process, party A is able to offer, in any case, whatever. Scott Walker is talking about this idea with his notion for lower taxes across the board, and he describes this with the term the Laffer curve. But according to Walker, it's called the Coles curve. I guess he's actually spewing a little bit of intellectual material. That all sort of comes to an end because I guess Walker wraps up his speech by talking about how he's a war hawk, right? Because he doesn't want, to lose that base of the Republican Party to Jeb Bush. So he says, however, we need to live in a safe and stable world, right? That's the part where he says, that's why I'm for true safety. And then he just starts talking about how he was going to be like some kind of a war hawk, saying, I guess he called for the military budget to increase. I mean, that's standard in the Republican Party. But yeah, he says that the military budget should be back at the level that it was under the Secretary of Defense Gates. Whatever that, fellow was recommending. Of course, for all I know, the level that Secretary Gates was recommending was the same budget level that, we were at while we were, in the heat of the battle in the Iraq and Afghanistan war. I mean, surely we're at more peace with the world now than we were half a decade ago, a decade ago. Is that wishful thinking? What's the issue here, guys? Totally, throws some red meat out to that wing of the Republican primary voters who are looking for that hawk candidate. And, he's pretty rough on Obama and Hillary. He's saying that, we need to deal with Russia and from a position of strength and such. And he takes a quick shot at Putin, saying that Putin is adhering to the old Lenin principle. You probe with bayonets. If you find mush, you push. under Obama and Clinton, Putin has found a lot of mush over the last few years. Alright, so that's all I have to say about that. Walker takes a position on China's growing dominance. Actually, he takes 3 positions specifically. Stop, slow, and speak out. He thinks we should stop cyber attacks from China. That we should slow the expansion of China in international waters. And that we should speak out against China. I can't even remember, because that's how weak his position was. Oh yeah, he talked about how he visited Israel, although he did not describe it as complete and total preparation for running for president. But he bragged a little bit about how he met with some top people over in Israel. And he kind of closed with some, overall hawkishness before painting some nice, pretty pictures of America. And so then Scott Walker got out of there right on time. Never one to miss a cue. In fact, I was able to count 6 winks that he did directly after finishing his speech while being applauded. 6 winks. He is a natural. And then his family came up, his wife and 2 sons. This moment seemed a little unrehearsed because they all were kind of, maybe looking to get a little affection from Scott, and he pretty much herded his sons and wife in about 1.5 seconds into, the perfect photo op position, and very, very smooth operation. And they all stood there and got applauded. And then Scott took off into the wings. God knows what he does back there. In any case, we have a very mean, and I mean that, in a sort of a competitive, complimentary sense, right? This is a very capable candidate. Whatever you do, be sure to check out the next edition of Presidential Speculatainment, the podcast, which is, of course, here to serve the needs of whatever comes up, whatever that might be. That's what I'm here for, here at Presidential Speculatainment. So please subscribe to the podcast or check out the website. Stay tuned for the next edition, because you know what I will be doing, or at least you can take a very educated guess. So, until then, my friends,